There is yellow foam on the kitchen floor, and your dog is standing next to it looking up at you like they are waiting to see what you will do next. You were not expecting this when you walked in. Maybe it was first thing this morning, before coffee, before anything. And now you are here on your phone trying to figure out if this is the kind of thing that waits until Monday or the kind of thing that does not wait at all. That instinct to search, that is the right instinct. Not because something is necessarily wrong, but because your dog just said something to you in the only language they have, and you deserve to know what it means. The problem is not that you panicked. The problem is that nobody ever taught you the vocabulary. Vomiting looks the same from the outside, whether it is completely harmless or genuinely urgent. And that gap between what you are seeing and what it actually means is exactly what this video closes. And they mean 5 completely different things. Some of them are your dog's body doing exactly what it is supposed to do. Some of them are your dog asking for a small change. And one of them is your dog asking for help they cannot give themselves. By the end of this, you will know which is which. Point 4 is the one that stops most people cold. Not because it is the scariest, but because most owners find out there are 5 types of vomiting that your dog will produce across their lifetime. Been watching it happen for months without realizing what they were seeing. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Most dogs spend their entire lives trying to tell the person they love most that something in their body needs attention. And most owners never receive that message. Not because they do not care, but because no one ever handed them the translation. This script is that translation, starting right now. 1. The yellow foam that was never a warning sign. You come downstairs in the morning, and there it is. A small puddle of yellow or greenish foam, sometimes with a little bile, usually on the kitchen floor or near the back door. Your dog seems fine. Bright eyes, wagging tail, ready for breakfast, and yet there is this thing on the floor and you are standing there wondering if you missed something last night. What you're looking at is bile. Your dog's digestive system produces it continuously to help break down food, but when the stomach has been empty for too long, usually overnight, there is nothing for the bile to work on. Research from the Journal of Veterinary Internal Medicine has documented what gastroenterologists call bilious vomiting syndrome. And what surprised the team studying it was how consistently it appeared in otherwise completely healthy dogs who simply had long gaps between their last meal and morning. The stomach lining becomes irritated by the acid and bile sitting in an empty space, and the body's response is to expel it. It is not illness. It is an empty stomach doing exactly what an empty stomach does. The repair here is almost embarrassingly simple. A small snack before bed, a few pieces of kibble, a small biscuit, gives the digestive system something to work with through the night. Within a week of this change, most owners report the morning foam disappears entirely. That small handful of food before lights out is not just a digestive fix. It is the first time you have answered your dog in a language their body actually understands. And here is where it gets interesting, because that yellow foam and the next type of vomiting look nothing alike. And the difference between them tells you something completely different about what your dog's body is doing. 2, the meal that came back up whole. You put the bowl down, your dog inhales the food in what feels like 11 seconds, and then somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes later, UAP, it comes. Mostly intact, barely chewed, looking almost exactly like it did going in. Your dog sniffs it, sometimes eats it again, and you are standing there genuinely unsure whether to be horrified or relieved. This is not vomiting in the clinical sense. It is regurgitation, and the distinction matters enormously. A study published through the American College of Veterinary Internal Medicine drew a clear line between the two. Vomiting involves active abdominal contractions and partially digested content, while regurgitation is passive. The food never made it past the esophagus into the stomach at all. The finding that stopped the researchers was this: dogs who ate from standard flat bowls at floor level were significantly more likely to regurgitate than dogs whose pace was slowed or whose posture was adjusted. The body was not malfunctioning. The pace of eating was simply faster than the mechanics of swallowing could manage. A slow feeder bowl, a snuffle mat, or even spreading the food across a baking sheet changes the entire dynamic of mealtime. Your dog does not need less food, they need more time with it. When you slow that meal down, you are not just preventing regurgitation. You are turning a stressful, competitive, gulping experience into something that actually feels like eating. That is a pace problem, not a health problem. But the next one is something your dog is doing entirely on purpose, and once you understand why, you will never look at a patch of grass the same way again. 3. The grass that was always a choice. You are on a walk or in the backyard, and your dog drops their nose to the grass and starts eating it with a kind of focused deliberateness that looks almost medicinal. They are not grazing casually. They are selecting specific blades, chewing them minimally, and swallowing them in a way that seems intentional. A few minutes later, they vomit, and then they look completely fine. Researchers at the University of California, Davis conducted one of the most thorough studies on grass-eating behavior in domestic dogs. And what surprised the team was that the majority of dogs who ate grass showed no signs of illness beforehand. The assumption had always been that dogs eat grass because they feel sick. What the data actually showed was that grass eating often precedes vomiting as a deliberate act of self-regulation, the dog choosing to introduce an indigestible material that stimulates the stomach lining and triggers the vomiting reflex. The dog is not reacting to nausea. The dog is managing it. You do not need to stop this behavior. What you can do is make sure the grass your dog has access to is free of pesticides and herbicides, because the self-regulation itself is healthy. It is the chemical exposure that is not. Letting your dog do this on clean ground is letting them use a tool they have carried inside them for thousands of years. Trusting that is one of the quieter forms of respect you can offer. But there is a version of vomiting that is nothing like these 3. It does not resolve. It does not produce anything. And it is the one that brought one owner into a veterinary clinic on a Tuesday afternoon with her hands shaking slightly and her dog pressed against her leg and her dog pressed against her leg. This is the one. The waiting room was quiet that afternoon. A woman named Sarah sat with her 4-year-old Labrador, Finn, who had been retching since early morning. White foam, nothing solid, over and over, with a restlessness between episodes that she had never seen in him before. He could not settle. He kept standing up and lying down. His abdomen looked slightly different to her, though she could not have said exactly how. She had almost waited until morning. She almost talked herself out of coming. The veterinarian who saw them that afternoon had been practicing for 16 years. She came into the exam room without a clipboard, crouched down to Finn's level first, ran her hands along his sides, and then looked up at Sarah and said something that Sarah would repeat to people for years afterward. She said, "Your dog has been talking to you all day, and you listened. That is why you're here." What Finn was showing was the 4th type of vomiting, unproductive retching, combined with white foam, abdominal distension, and behavioral restlessness. The veterinarian explained it in plain language. When a dog retches repeatedly and produces nothing, or produces only white foam and saliva, the body is no longer managing a digestive inconvenience. It is signaling that something is happening beyond the stomach's ability to self-correct. In Finn's case, the concern was gastric dilatation, a condition where the stomach fills with gas and can rotate on its axis, cutting off blood supply to surrounding organs. Research published in the Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association identified large, deep-chested breeds as significantly higher risk, and the finding that changed how veterinarians communicate this to owners was how consistently the early signs, the retching, the foam, the inability to settle, were dismissed as ordinary upset stomach in the hours before the situation became critical. The veterinarian told Sarah about 2 cases she had seen that year. The first was a golden retriever whose owner had given him antacids and waited overnight. By morning, the window for intervention had closed. The second was a boxer whose owner had come in within 2 hours of the first episode of unproductive retching. That dog went home 4 days later and lived another 6 years. The difference between those 2 outcomes was not the severity of what happened inside the dog. It was the speed at which someone decided that this particular vomiting was different. She told Sarah that white foam on its own, once in an otherwise calm dog, is not an emergency. But white foam combined with repeated retching, a dog who cannot find a comfortable position, a belly that looks or feels tighter than usual, or any sign of weakness or pale gums, that combination is the body asking for help. It cannot give itself, and the time to act is now, not in the morning. Sarah nodded. She already knew. She had known the moment she walked through the door. Your dog has been speaking this whole time.